fill his chest with sparkling booty.
I did not want to see this movie. I so did not want to see this movie. I was dragging my feet so bad when it came to watching it for the review. I saw the kind of jokes they were doing in the trailers and heard them playing Come On Feel the Noise, and I just thought I knew what kind of movie this was going to be. Honestly, I should not have been so worried. It is Aardman after all, and I love Aardman, and it didn't get an Oscar nomination for nothing. The animation is gorgeous, nothing less than what we'd expect from the creators of Wallace and Gromit. It's not the most realistic looking animation, but there's a charm to Aardman's style I've always liked, and I can totally buy into the idea that these are characters who think and act for themselves. There's a level of subtlety in the faces that really sells the performance. And I was really impressed with the kinds of effects they did, especially with the water. That looks like real water. And going back to the characters, there was a lot to love here. The pirate captain was a fun guy, but imperfect enough to feel human, and he did succumb to some very human weaknesses. He's bumbling, but never quite comes across as incompetent. One thing that threw me, though, why doesn't he have a name? In fact, none of the main pirates have names. And while I admit I do like the clever titles they have, like the surprisingly curvaceous pirate and the pirate who likes sunsets and kittens, and yes, even number 2. That one is subtle enough, I'll give it a pass. They could have milked it for all it was worth, but they just sort of let it speak for itself, and I respect that. But I still think it's odd that none of them actually have a name, especially in the case of our main character. He's the hero, the one we're meant to identify with, and he doesn't even have a name. I think what really weirds me out about that, though, is how little trouble I had connecting with him despite him not having a proper name. He has a definable, likable personality that, again, completely speaks for itself. The voice acting is great. There are a lot of big names, but they don't really shove their talent in your face. They just do a good job with the voice acting, and again, I respect that. I knew I recognized these voices, but I couldn't actually put a name to most of them until the credits started rolling. The 2 big exceptions to this were Brendan Gleeson because, well, how can you not tell that's him?
A bit more. 21, 22.
Thank you.
If you've heard him in something else, anything else, you'll be able to tell that it's him here. And Imelda Staunton because, well, she's basically playing a character she already did in a live-action movie that I really loved. And I was impressed that they didn't advertise the fact that Charles Darwin is apparently a character in this movie. I mean, I guess you could call that a bad move because it could have been a good way to draw in ticket sales, but I'm glad they didn't just go for the cheap, hey, come see our movie because it has animated Charles Darwin and that's funny angle. The story is a lighthearted pirate adventure, but I was surprised at how little in the film is actually played for laughs. Sure, it's very joke-heavy, but there's a serious story, and there are several points where the danger feels very real. And I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for that dry British wit.
Blood Island. So called because it's the exact shape of some blood.
Even at its basis, there's still a level of sophistication and refinement about it. There's a time and a place for the over-the-top humor, but I have a lot of respect for a film that can make a joke and then just let it go. But possibly the biggest strength of the film was that I never quite knew what to expect next. I wasn't expecting what turned out to be the focus of the film, I wasn't expecting the characters to make the choices they did, and I wasn't expecting the direction the film ultimately went down. And again, I have a great amount of respect for an animated film that can surprise me like that. And at the risk of repeating myself, this film does still have its setbacks. It falls victim to telling and not showing a couple times.
Captain, do you remember the little talk we had?
Well, the one about whether pigs are actually a type of fruit.
No. The one about us trying to avoid harebrained schemes that end in us facing certain death.
But other than that, the writing is actually pretty solid. There were no plot holes that I could see, and there is a clear progression of story and character that doesn't feel forced or rushed. And if the writing is solid, I'm willing to overlook a lot of a film's flaws. This movie really doesn't give us much in the way of new material, but what it does have to present is solid, funny, charming, and never once bad, dull, or contrived. In fact, I find myself not wanting to talk about it too much because, of all things, I don't want to spoil it. This is really something you should experience for yourself. And to try and analyze it too much I think would almost do it a disservice. Like Rise of the Guardians, it's a solid example of something that is great just for what it is. I'll say one thing that is kind of spoilery. There is a pretty powerful message near the end of the film. It has the basic appearance of be careful what you wish for. But beyond that, it's almost a cautionary tale that if you trade in something you love for something else you've always wanted, it may not only be not as good as what you already had, but you might just end up losing everything. A bird in the hand, I suppose, would be a good way to sum it up, but at least this was a good, solid example of that message that, again, didn't feel forced. It's kind of heavy for a lighthearted kids movie, but honestly, this didn't feel like something that was aimed directly at kids. It just felt like a fun movie that was simply trying to entertain, regardless of age. It doesn't pander to kids, nor does it have gratuitous adult humor. When people say fun for the whole family, they're talking about movies like this. So it all comes back to expectations. If you go into this movie expecting a feat of cinematic brilliance with a fresh new story and tons of character drama, you'll be disappointed. If you go in expecting a fun time at the movies that'll make you feel good about yourself, you won't be. It works perfectly for what it is, and for that reason I give it 2.5 stars out of 4. The Pirates Band of Misfits was created by Aardman Animation and distributed worldwide by Sony Pictures.
You can't lose, Captain!
The Pirates Band of Misfits.
You're the best crew a captain can wish for. I'm using crew in the street sense. You.